right, it looks like it is time to get this process started. Let's call this to order, and Paula, would you like to do roll call?
Matt Guillory.
Here.
Jorge Charnico.
Here.
Dylan Bradway.
Here.
Betsy Brunstetter. Donna Cervantes. Here. Tyler Holmes. Lee Peoples.
Here.
Ben Sellers.
Here.
And James Barnum.
Here.
You have a quorum.
All right, thank you. First thing up is the minutes from last month's meeting. Do I have a motion for approval?
Motion to approve.
Second? Anyone? All right, I have a motion and a second. All in favor of approval of the June minutes, say aye. Any opposed? All right, the minutes are approved. Thank you. We have a relatively light docket today. Cases withdrawn, none. Continuance request, none. We have one item on the consent docket. Michael, would you like to take us through that one?
This is a proposed mural on the side of a building at 516 Northwest 23rd Street. It meets all our code requirements and guidelines, and therefore we place it on the consent docket for your consideration.
And just to refresh everyone's memory and anyone who wasn't on the commission when we started this process, the process now goes from here to the Arts Commission.
It's already been at the Arts Commission.
It's already been at Arts
We don't
Commission.
bring it to you until it's been to them.
Okay. Is there anyone that has comments, questions? All right.
I'll comment. I love it. I think it's beautiful and looks great, so I like it.
Thank you. All right, so do I have a motion for approval of the consent docket?
Move for approval.
Do I have a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. Consent docket is passed, and we have only one case for individual consideration this time, also on 23rd Street.
Yes, this is an application for a new freestanding fast food drive-through restaurant on a currently vacant site at the southwest corner of Northwest 23rd and Barnes. We prepared for you a staff report describing the proposed improvements. The project is on the south side of Northwest 23rd, across the street from a shopping center, which has a Panda Express, Chicken Express, a McDonald's, and I think a KFC. And we've identified for you a couple of significant concerns with the proposal. The first being that a variance is required because of the setback issue, and that's prompted almost exclusively by the fact that it is a drive-through restaurant, and by virtue of the fact that it has to have that drive-through lane between the building and the street, the setback cannot be met. And we've recognized and acknowledged to you in the staff report that a drive-through fast food use is a permitted use in the underlying C4 district. However, and therefore we've consented to the fact that a drive-through may or may not be essential to the success of this project, and similarly to the way we handled the Raising Cane's, which is down at the southeast corner of Penn and 23rd, we did recommend approval of a variance for that setback, and we're recommending approval for, recommending that you recommend to the Board of Adjustment approval of the variance for the setback. However, the second consideration is with regard to a guideline that talks about pedestrian orientation and vitality of the streetscape. And we've detailed for you, I think quite extensively on pages 4 and 5 of your staff report, the variety of concerns we have with respect to the way this particular project has been laid out and oriented toward the street. We've had extensive discussions with the applicant with respect to the possibility of trying to rotate the building 80 degrees or rotate it 180 degrees, so that you'd have some sort of active open window area fronting on Northwest 23rd Street. And they have, for the most part, resisted the opportunity to do that. They have, and we did acknowledge in the staff report, done some work with respect to the blank north face of the building, tried to incorporate, let me go back a little bit. So the way they're proposing it right now, the front, quote-unquote, front of the building is facing west towards the parking lot. They have a fenced-in patio area here where they're going to have, probably 2 or 3 tables with umbrellas and so on and so forth for outdoor dining. The door to the business is on the south side of the building, facing away from the street. And then you've got basically a blank north side of the building, which has the drive-through window, and then they've incorporated into their design, per our request, some false windows that give the appearance of some fenestration on this side of the building. However, you can't see into those windows and see into the building. And then at the same time, the back of the building essentially is facing barns. And they have some landscaping in and behind here, but there's virtually no fenestration on the rear of the building. Now, we've talked to them about turning the building 180 degrees so that the patio would be on this end and the front of the building with the window glass would all be over here facing the corner. They've indicated to us that's a hardship for them because of the way that it would complicate matters for the outdoor diners with being close to the speaker box for the drive-through and so on and so forth. We also discussed the possibility of rotating it 90 degrees so the building was north-south oriented with the front glass facing the street. And their indication to us on that is that the lot is not deep enough to accommodate that orientation and still maintain this secondary access and all the parking that they have on the south side. We, I think, described in our staff report that we believe that if the applicant was willing to forego some of the additional parking they have on the lot and possibly forego a full access on Barnes, that the building could be oriented north-south with only the drive-through lane in this area instead of all this parking, and then you'd have a double-loaded set of parking lot on the west side of the lot, which we've kind of, I guess, conceptually laid out, but they've indicated that's not a preferable design for them because they're going to be giving up a lot of parking and losing that secondary access. We feel that this is a very important consideration with respect to the project. It's a vacant piece of land, and these guidelines have been in place for quite some time, so we felt that we were, I guess, a little surprised that they didn't take these guidelines into consideration in the design of the project with respect to the vitality of the streetscape. And consequently, we feel we've made a recommendation to the Commission that the item be continued to give the applicant an opportunity to explore other alternatives for the siting of this project so that it would provide more vitality to the streetscape along 23rd in particular, while still retaining the drive-through use. We've taken an extra step in this staff report so that if the Commission is not inclined to go along with that recommendation, that you do have the language you would need to go ahead and approve the project and recommend approval of the variance to the Board of Adjustment. That completes our presentation, and we're prepared to respond to any questions the Commission may have.
Real quickly, Michael, you mentioned that y'all had put something together conceptually, what it would look like to rotate the building 90 degrees. Is that something that you have available?
I think I may have a copy of it in the case file, but we didn't put it together in the exhibits for your packet.
Okay. Any other questions before we open up to the applicant. Any questions for Michael?
Well, maybe it'd be appropriate to wait until
Okay.
further, but I'm concerned about closing the access on Barn and what that would do to just traffic impact.
Okay, we can come back to that. Is there anyone here that wants to speak to this proposal? If you can sign in and state your name and address into the microphone, please.
Sure. My name is Anthony Peterson from Edmond, Oklahoma. And if you guys have any questions about the lot, I can explain it if you'd like me to, kind of why we laid it out that way. Otherwise, if anybody has any questions about why we would have done it this way, I'll just go into it. When we first started this site, we actually had Dan, our civil engineer, go through and try to find the best possible way to lay out a building on this lot. It's only 100-foot north to south, 150-foot wide. You have a 30-foot setback off of Barnes. In regards to the traffic flow, that was one of the concerns we had. We wanted to make sure if anybody were to drive into the lot, we wanted them to be able to leave if there was no parking or if they just decided not to stay. The patio, we oriented it to the west, mainly because of the drive-through being on the east side, would have the menu board and the speaker box there, but also that our main entrance, most of the people that are going to be coming to our place of business are going to be entering off of 23rd Street. So that's kind of why we faced it to the west as far as that is concerned. We have 17 parking spots, which is exactly what we have to have for this size of a building. We also have access off of Barnes sidewalk for pedestrians. Unfortunately, we could not get that off of 23rd Street since we have a retaining wall on that north side of the building.
Mr. Chairman?
Could you talk a little bit about what property is immediately to the south of this? So what's behind you?
So that's a C1, 50-foot, I believe, by the 100-foot wide. Years ago, the guy that owns it is the property owner that has a house back there. Originally, the guy that owned this lot before approached that gentleman to try to purchase the property because he was looking at possibly building a building there for us to go into as well as addition to other retail places. But apparently, it was quite expensive in what he was asking. We also searched out possibilities of getting cross-access parking to the west. There's a strip mall there. Offered the guy, what we felt like would be fair enough to try to get him to do that. He declined what we wanted and wanted $100,000 for cross-access parking, which we were like, sorry, but no, thank you. So this is kind of where we were as far as how we could do this lot, as far as trying to purchase anything or making ease of access a lot greater from the west side would have been better if we could have gotten cross-access parking, but unfortunately that property owner did not want to cooperate in that manner.
We have questions from the panel?
How do you address the concerns about the openings facing north? Was there any more you'd consider doing?
The reason that we don't want to try to turn the building 90 degrees is we have that 30-foot setback off of Barnes. In order for us to get a decent-sized building on there, it would pretty much take probably about 7 parking spots out of there at least. And then also, we would only probably be able to get about a one-way access out of there or in, if we could do that. The other concern with that is that if somebody were to drive into the parking lot and there wasn't any parking spots, if we couldn't get access to Barnes, then they'd be doing a 3-point turn or, who knows how many other cars would be behind it. Does that answer your question? I'm sorry.
Well, and the suggestion from staff was that there be more window openings facing north, and
Oh, is that, okay. So we do have one window on the north side that would be the farthest to the right there. That's a live window. The other three are spandrel windows, which is basically a fake window. We added those to that to try to make some sort of adjustment to try to incorporate it as like more of the face of the building, so it didn't look like as blank or as empty as possible for the pedestrians walking by. So at least appeared to the road as partially the face of the building. Also, we added that graphic there to try to dress up that building too.
and why they can't be
The
real
reason they
windows?
can't be is because our interior, I don't think we have a layout. Do we have a layout in there at all? Yeah, right here. If you see, the north side has our restaurant side on it. Because of the drive-through being on the north side, you have to have it on that side. I believe we have about 34 seats inside, so really there isn't a ton of seating inside, but that's the reason for us not being able to put live windows there, because there's electrical and
Yeah, the way
other
the
things
drive-through
being
is
laid there.
set up and the way the building's oriented, the drive-through windows on the north side of the building right here, where I'm showing you, and their kitchen area is all aligned with the north side of that building. So having the kitchen adjacent to this wall makes it difficult to work windows into that wall.
And the only other reason we have it on that north side too is because we have to have stacking space for those cars. It's like, I believe it's 110 or 120 feet.
Are there other additions that would make it more pedestrian-friendly you would recommend, even artwork or anything?
Well, like we said, they did add the 3 windows, and they did add this graphic that takes up some of the dead space of this wall. But again, these windows are not, you can't see through them, so there's no visible activity from the street through those windows into the building, which is what we're trying to
Right.
accomplish. And as we noted in the staff report, all 4 of the fast food drive-throughs that are on the north side of the street are oriented north-south towards 23rd. And we think it's probably a good model to follow in this particular situation.
The only difference between the north side, though, is that they're quite deeper as far as like the buildings and the lots, and it's not exactly what we have for options for our lot size. I mean, if you look down the road,
Yeah, you can see in this aerial,
It's quite large.
those fast food drive-throughs are floating in a sea of parking.
Yes.
So they have lots of room to play with. And it's easier for them to orient them north-south because they have a lot of depth going north-south, whereas this is a shallow lot going north-south. So that's part of the constraint they're faced with on this property.
And this site, being small like that, does obviously pose some challenges. At the same time, I mean, orientation to the street is something that's come up multiple times before, and it's something that's very important to the commission. We have 2 streets here to try and find a way to orient to at least one of them, and to me, it appears that everything's kind of turned away from the street. You know, it's all the back end of the property facing both streets, which is less than ideal. Are there any renderings besides the drawings that that we're looking at right here of what the north elevation would look like?
No.
Okay. Other questions?
What was the issue with the 180 rotation?
go ahead.
Let me go back to the site plan so you can talk about that.
So the reason we changed it around is because the main door for our business is going to be on the left side there, so it'd be the east door on that sidewalk. If we had it turned, we have to have our menu board on the east side with the speaker box. We were thinking that it was going to be a little less convenient for a customer to sit outside and listen to the speaker box the entire time, as well as the fact that we have our main entrance on the north side, on the left side there, and we figured that having the patio on that side, the face of the building would be best being by that entrance instead of facing to the east. And plus the fact that we have a majority of the parking on the left side there. So if we were to flip it around, granted, this lot isn't very big, but it also adds another distance for that person that's driving in to the space to have to walk across the entire lot to the front door.
Okay. There's no entrance off the patio?
No, we don't have an entrance off the patio. The left door there is, I think it's like 8 feet away from that patio, so people would just have to go out that front door right there. Just go
This elevation here, the west elevation, is what faces the bulk of the parking lot to the west, and you can see it's just 3 windows. The only door access is here for customers. This is probably a delivery door.
They're both entrances.
Okay.
They'll both be glass.
Okay.
But the main door on the left is the front where our registers will be. And then if anybody wants to go out to the patio, they just have to step outside and walk over 8 feet to the patio there.
Well, this is just a thought, possibility. Would just be like mirroring the whole configuration. So not 180ing it, but mirroring it around, you know?
Are you talking about like leaving the patio where it's at?
Yeah.
Well, that would basically be putting the patio on the back side of a wall, which I think would be much less
Yeah, I mean,
desirable
it's
for a
mirror.
customer, because then they're going to have to walk all the way to the back part of the building to find a spot and then come all the way up there.
So I think he's talking about the other access,
The other access.
AXIS.
East to west.
Yeah.
You're talking so that the drive-through is on the south side?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, we talked
Oh,
about that
that's
as
part of the reason
as an
I-
option. It's
yeah.
because it didn't have the queuing that
Okay, got it.
they designed, the
okay.
car
I-
queuing. But if you put it on the north side, you get the whole length of the building twice.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I agree that that's a very attractive option if you can figure out what, because otherwise the cars back up into the street, and that's not a good solution
Right.
either.
Yeah.
So this is an interesting one to me because we've got a fast food restaurant that's actually pushed the building to the street and put the parking in the rear. And we push for that a lot as opposed to seeing a sea of parking on 23rd Street. Go back to the rendering from the north side, from 23rd Street view. Those 2 false windows, even those are in your kitchen area, can those not be real windows even if the public's into?
The reason they can't be is because they have, we have like our cold tables and we have a lot of electrical running through there, like piping and stuff. So there's, like, we couldn't put any more windows on the left side there because they have shear walls, supporting walls.
I mean, the on
Right, the 2 windows on the
Right.
right. That's actually, like, that window in particular in the middle would basically be where our phones are at. Like, we've got 4 phones and then a bunch of monitors. So, unfortunately, it's not possible to do that because of the equipment that's on that side of the wall.
I've seen those maybe vacant buildings that have the faux painting that look like cafe curtains. So it looks like from the street, a vacant building. Something could be done like that, and even to add awnings over these windows, something with more.
There are awnings above. There will be some, I don't know how far they come off, but if you look at the top one there, you can see the awnings that come out above, kind of next to the lighting on the left side.
Yes, okay.
They stick out about, I think it's 2.5 feet.
So not a traditional curve, but the straight.
It'll be a straight, metal awning that comes out.
To go back to Ben's point for 1 second, I was about to comment on that myself. I mean, typically we would applaud moving the building towards the front of the lot and pushing the parking, kind of hiding the parking behind. It's unfortunate that if that's what's causing the design to kind of turn its back on the street, I don't know if that's a good trade-off. Is there any option of moving the parking to the north along 23rd and moving And would that allow you to rotate the building 180?
So if we moved it to the south side?
If you move the parking to the north side and move the building further back to the south?
I mean, it's going to give us a different access point off of Barnes, I'm not sure, to be honest. Like when we originally drew this up, we did have it towards the back of the building, or at the back of the lot. But as far as like with the Urban Design Committee and that kind of stuff, as far as like what their guidelines were, that was the reason we didn't originally put it in the back. Ideally, that would have been great if we would have put it in the back and just come forward with that right now, but changing it now, obviously, we're trying to do it as close to the guidelines as we can with our restraints that we have on this.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, Betsy?
Is this a standard Jimmy John's floor plan?
Yeah. Our drive-throughs are always oriented to the side with the parking, or with the...
But is the footprint the same?
The interior will always be whatever, like, they're going to be very similar from Jimmy John's to Jimmy John's. Like, there's one on Northwest Expressway that we own, and it's similar in size. It has the drive-through on it'd be facing north to south, so it'd be on the east side. Or the drive-through comes around that side, as it is in here, and the kitchen is on the very left side.
It just appears that you could reorient the plan, make it shorter, and get everything you want in a shorter building and reorient it to be north-south. So that then you get more window space for your customers. And the Arby's just up the street is oriented that way. And I don't think their site is any deeper than yours.
I'm not familiar with the Arby's, so I couldn't say if it is or not. But like turning the north to south, that was our concern with doing that was the access and making sure we have enough parking for the site. If we do 1,400 square foot or whatever we have there, we need 17 parking spots. And then turning it that way, we're going to lose that access. That's our concern, is losing access and making it as easy for people to come in and out, for pedestrians as well. But with the drive-through being one of our like priorities as far as like customers and making sure that we can make as much money, obviously, as we can. That's kind of why we have it this way, since it's longer than north to south.
Did you try to make it a little bit shorter and wider, so you've got the same square footage?
I have not. I can't say we have. I haven't explored that area as far as like if we were to change it. So I can't say yes, no.
Okay. Well, I would have a very hard time voting for a project that has fake windows on the front. And I think that you would lose a lot of the interaction both with the pedestrians and the pedestrians with you.
Right. My only concern with, like, I understand what you're saying. There are places on that road, obviously, that don't have as much glazing on the north side, and I know that, like, Raising Cane's just put theirs in. They have, I believe, three glass on the north side, but they also run against Penn Avenue, which is a much more trafficked area as far as like roads concerned versus Barnes Avenue.
But you can actually see into Raising Cane's.
Yeah.
And we went through all kinds of gymnastics to try to get their drive-through in, which you're using the same kind of model where you got the drive-through between the street and the building.
And, I mean, to me, one of the other major differentiations between this and Raising Cane's is that the front of the building does orient onto Penn for Raising Cane's. So, I mean, this one, both, whether it's 23rd Street or Barnes, you have the backside of the building on both streets there. You were, a second ago, started to address the standard orientation of Jimmy John's drive-throughs. You didn't finish that. Could you address that? Is there a standard way that they're done?
With a drive-through, you're going to have stacking space that you're going to need for cars. So a normal Jimmy John's is going to be on the east side of the building as far as for a drive-through. That's just the only way it works for stacking around a building is basically why they're usually standardized to the left side of the building if you're facing it on the front. So.
To get to the driver's side.
Yeah, to get a drive-through in there, you have to have it on the left side so you have stacking space for cars. And that's in any city. I mean, you guys are obviously.
Other questions, comments?
Would you be willing to continue this and look at some other options?
I mean, I guess I would like to get it approved, obviously. Without like having to do that, obviously we would have to go back to the drawing boards as far as like getting all of our architectural plans done and the time that it takes to do it. So that's why I'm would like to get some. I would like it approved if possible, but that is up to you guys. I would not like to do a continuance though.
Questions, comments, motions?
So one of the things we have to do if we're going to do a continuance is we need your approval to do a continuance.
Well,
And so are you saying you'd rather not do
I
a
would prefer not
continuance?
to do a continuance. If for some reason we're approved or not approved, how does that process work? I guess I'm not familiar with.
Well, and
If you're not approved, you have 10 days to file an appeal.
Okay. And then after that point, then you bring forth something that is more viable to.
Now, it would be, if you're not approved, the appeal is heard by the Board of Adjustment, and it will be this design.
Okay.
If you think you want to propose a new design, it needs to come back here.
Okay.
Be a continuance or a new case.
Okay.
And what we typically do, if it's going to be a continuance, if that's something you would agree to, we will to the best that we can, have you leave here today with a good sense of what we are wanting to see changed and what would help you in the redesign to come back and get a more favorable outcome.
So if we were to continue, then I'd just have to reapply. Is that what it comes down to, Lisa? Or
Continuance would go to next month, correct?
Well,
Depending on how quickly you could get it redone.
the deadline for next month's meeting was yesterday.
Okay.
For continued projects, we allow an extra week. So to have revised plans in our hands for next month's meeting, we would need those plans by next Tuesday.
yeah, that probably wouldn't.
Which
that
is
wouldn't happen.
rapidly quick, and I know some people
Well-
have the ability to do it and other people don't.
Right.
But our recommendation for the continuance is to go to September because we think they're going to need the extra time. If they-
Michael?
Yes.
Michael, explain what the difference is between the drawings we need and a full set of architectural drawings. Do you require a full set of architectural drawings in order to present them to us?
I believe we have a full set of architectural drawings.
Lisa?
Are you saying that we could have a good design development set of drawings? We don't need the full CDs and we don't need the full civil engineering site plan. We could approve off of a dimensioned site, a site plan that shows the parking spaces and the dimensions, not the grading, if that saves time.
Well, I mean, I'm not sure how fast or soon they can get those done. I couldn't say yes or no how fast it would be done, so.
Given where we're at and workload we have this time of the year, we could probably give you a few more days past Tuesday, if that was going to help, to stay on that August agenda. I think we only have 2 cases right now on that agenda, so.
But at a minute, the most significant thing would be the revised site plan. And then
Right, and
updated
that
the corresponding
may or may not-
updated elevation.
That may or may not take a revised floor plan, I don't, yeah.
But does that make sense? We don't need like construction
architectural
details, but
I mean-
enough to understand what it's about.
Right. So if we go forward and it's denied, then what would I do? Besides the appeal, like, that would be the only step forward, going forward?
Correct.
Okay.
And you would be appealing the decision on this project, not any sort of modified.
And if it goes, sorry, questions. If it goes to the Board of Adjustment and they upheld like a denial possibly, what would that next
You can
step
go
be?
to district court
Okay.
Or start the process over.
Or start the process over.
or start the process over with presumably a different
So it would
project.
be a totally different project. Okay.
I know a lot of time with these types of restaurants, the standard floor plan is very common, and you've got the way you operate down, but there may be an opportunity to slightly modify the footprint of the building, make those, and rearrange a little bit of your serving area, maybe pull your bathrooms around, and if you got those 3 windows on 23rd, that creates that interaction with the street. I think that goes a long way, and you may be able to do that without a full site redesign, potentially. That's my 2 cents.
I'm not sure how they would redesign it to be able to get more of that glazing on there, as far as like real glass. Like the interior is pretty tight as far as like what we can do as far as like moving things around and getting enough seating in there, or having any seating on that like right side, and having enough like access for like handicapped people and all that kind of stuff.
So I frequent the Jimmy John's near downtown,
Yeah, that's ours.
and there's no drive-through.
Correct.
Parking is horrible,
Oh, I know. Terrible.
but it's packed.
Yeah, right. Yep.
So it seems like they've made it work within an odd geometry. So I think there are a lot of constraints here, but no more constraints than what you have on Harrison. I believe it's on Harrison.
I'd say the only reason that it has a lot more volume of people around there as well is we do like 60% of our business delivery there. I don't believe that this site will probably do quite as much as like they do with the volume of people that live around there and work down there. And that's really why we want to drive through on here, because of just people like convenience. People have kids and they don't want to get out of the car, and it's hot outside. And I mean, the stores that we have, I mean, we do about 30% more, or at least of our business, 30 to 35% of our business comes through drive-through if we have a drive-through. So.
And I do understand the desire for the drive-through. I think what we're all trying to do is figure out a compromise that allows you to develop the site to the, peak of your needs, but also not have 23rd Street and Barnes both get sight lines and orientations that are less than desirable.
So basically, what you're telling me is that orientation to Barnes would be best going forward if we wanted to make a smaller adjustment versus like totally turning it around 90 degrees or turning it 90 degrees north to south?
I mean, I can't speak for the commission. I would ideally like to see something that orients, that has some interaction with 23rd's the major street here. An orientation, an interaction with 23rd would be nice. Ideally, an interaction with both streets would be what we would like to see in an ideal world. Ben, you had mentioned about the parking. I don't know if you want to say anything more about that. From my point of view, the parking being in the back is nice, but if the compromise for that is that we get the back of the building turned outwards to both streets, that's not a good trade-off to me. I don't know if you feel the same way, or if okay. So this basically comes down to whether or not you're open to a continuance and coming back, and Michael's been gracious enough to say that an extra couple days to try and give you an opportunity to come back to for next month's meeting, or if you are not open to that and we go to kind of an up and down vote.
Can I talk to Dan for a second?
Sure.
Engineer? My concern is that we're going to have to, I mean, we've already spent X amount of dollars. I know that you guys don't have a lot of investment in that. That's not your job to be concerned with. But if we were to if we change the site plan like dramatically at all, like flipping it around or turning it north to south, we're going to have every single architectural plan done over again. That's one of my main concerns as well. So we're looking at spending quite a bit of money and time to have that reoriented if we were to do that. That's my last concern with it.
Well, and like we said, the system is set up to where for a continuance, it needs to be something that you agree to. And that's simply for the fact that so that it needs to be something that you think there is a reasonable chance of getting to a place that we're all happy, So if you're okay with the continuance and changing some things and coming back and going from there, we can try that. And if not, It would be basically that you don't really see there being a way of changing the plans.
I mean, there may be a way of changing the plans. I mean, obviously, it'd be simple to change it to face barns, but at the same time, it's not as simple because it's all that work that I'm going to have redone as far as like architectural plans, like basically we'd be starting over. That's kind of why I'm hesitant to want to do that. Especially with Barnes Avenue being, I know it is a street, but at the same time, Barnes Avenue it goes into housing. It's not a main thoroughfare for cars to go down. That's why I didn't think it was that big of a concern as far as like facing Barnes. Maybe if it was 23rd Street and Penn Avenue, I would obviously be totally on board with that, and we probably would have had it oriented that way, but.
Betsy, you have something to add?
No, I was just going to make a motion.
Okay. And I recognize it's a hard decision, but if you're not comfortable with doing a continuance, that's fine. One way or the other, we kind of need a.
Okay. I mean, if we get to the continuance next time, as far as like, if we haven't been able to find any other way to do it, like what happens then?
I mean, if you do a continuance and then come back next month and haven't really figured out the way to make any changes, then it goes to a vote at that point, and if it passes, then you're good. If it doesn't pass, then you have the option to appeal then.
And as far as like, if we were to try to orientate the building north to south, if we don't meet the parking guidelines, how does that? Does that go through you guys as far as like parking variances?
You would need a variance from the parking.
So I'd have to apply to the Board of Adjustment for a parking variance?
Right. But either with this, you have to apply you already have to go.
You need a variance.
Right, but don't you have to have it listed on there for them to review that? So what that mean, I have to reapply?
And he just added to
have you already?
Yeah, we applied for the
I don't know. I think so, but I'm not sure.
So this is already.
It's up on the
docket for Board of Adjustment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know what their threshold or deadline is to add or remove.
Okay.
I did not realize you were already up on the agenda for Board of Adjustment.
Yep.
I just wanted to chime in. Have we thought about just something completely different than those windows? I mean, are those fake windows, treating it completely different, like a graphic, I don't know, some sort of element that might draw people in off the street, but isn't those windows?
Well, we added the windows, and then we also have a Jimmy John's super seal right there between the drive-through and that other window. And the reason we did that is because I think the left side, the only room you had there was that window. I mean, we can add a graphic to those instead of windows. I mean, I would have to get together with the graphic design.
I guess I'm thinking more on our end too, like, would that be something we would consider?
Something along the lines of a mural or something is what you're thinking? Or
Yeah, or just something that would
related.
be different than the...
Yeah, and I'm not even sure what's allowed within Jimmy John's corporate structure. I mean...
The only other thing with that, too, is that signage allowance might hinder that as far as like what we could do, because I think what we have there is the largest we could put that super seal there and still have a decent sized sign above the drive-through there for the Jimmy John's sign itself. So,
and to a large extent, I mean, even with some fake windows or art or whatever it's going to be, you're going to have a line of cars there. It's not as if people are unfamiliar with drive-throughs. It's going to be, people are going to see it for what it is. It's the drive-through lane. Mm-hmm. We need to move this forward. So do we want to think about a continuance, or do we want to do an up and down vote?
Just so you know, I would be happy if you could find a way to make those other two windows that are in the customer area or closer to the customer area clear, so you could get some interaction with the sidewalk. I would be happy with that, because one of the things, if you've got tables and umbrellas on the west side, people coming on down 23rd Street are going to see that.
Right.
And then interact with those windows. The people walking will have a better, it will activate the street more with all of that stuff. So that's what would kind of seal it for me. It wouldn't be,
I would agree with Betsy's comments. If you found a way to put glass in those two windows, even if we know you're working behind there, that would go a long way.
So I'm not a traffic engineer or civil engineer, Stan knows, but it seems like as people are exiting the drive-through, they're going to try to make a pretty sharp right. And it seems tight, just from looking at it. So if the building does stay there, I guess it's curious if that radius, because you're going to want to turn right. It's going to be easier to turn right than it is left.
Well,
You can't
actually,
really
they
make out the
can't
median.
go left there because there's a median.
Okay, so it just
they will
seems
be going
like
right no matter which way they go.
Okay, so it just seems like a very tight U-turn. So, if it stays there, that's something that, I'm sure Dan's thought about it, but looks tight to me.
Speaking as someone who drives a truck without the best turning radius in the world, that would be a very difficult area for me to get out of.
Yeah. Dan, how wide is that opening there? Do you know? 30 foot wide?
It's not necessarily the width, although the width would be an issue if you've got a car that doesn't have a good turning radius, but it's that U-turn, because you're not making a left turn, you're making a U-turn to get onto traffic. So this backup that you're concerned about, this backing up is, from the way I see it, likely going to happen as people are exiting the drive-through lane.
I'd like to add that's why I feel strongly you need that exit on Barnes, because if it's difficult to make a right, in a pinch, you could always circle back around the building and exit on Barnes. So I feel strongly they need to keep that driveway on Barnes for both reasons, ingress and egress. So.
Are you saying that you feel like leaving it this orientation is best? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I agree with what's said about...
As far as like north to south versus east to west?
Yeah, I feel strong you need your access on Barnes.
Right.
However that impacts the design of the building. If the compromise is to add more, something to the front that makes it more active from the street, that easy compromise, I would agree with that as well.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'm okay with doing a continuance because I feel like I can maybe go to Jimmy John's and ask them if they can find a way to possibly just tweak the interior, but I also want to make sure, like, if we just tweak the interior and not flip it around, that's not going to be an issue going forward, because if we have to do all of that, I would need to know now so that I can have that kind of stuff, like, possibly there. I mean, if you guys are okay with trying to get that glazing on the north side being what we need to have it be applicable for everybody, I would consent to a continuance and be able to chase that possibility down and see what they say as far as like if they can figure out a way to orientate the inside.
And, individual commissioners may have something to add to this, but what I've heard from the panel so far is that they are open to finding a way to make this work without completely flipping it around, without totally reorienting, even if that might be the ideal preference. There are compromises in there. Betsy's point of the 3 windows to the west side, I mean, if those were 3 operable windows or real windows, at that point, roughly 40 or 50% of the building is interacting with the street. So that's a lot better than where we are now.
I'm not sure if they'll be able to get all three of them, but I think there's a possibility for sure that I would guess that two of those windows, like the one that's already opaque to the interior, or open to the interior, and then possibly the one to the left. I'm not sure if they'll be able to get all three of them, just as far as like the shortness of the building, but I mean, I'll ask them and see what they can do as far as like.
And others might want to, comment on how far they want to see things go, but I think there are compromises besides that are short of completely reorienting the building, although I would encourage you to at least give some other considerations to whether or not that is possible.
Okay.
Can I add something real quick?
Yes, please.
Because Donna mentioned access on barns, and I would suggest checking that out with traffic, because typically we don't like to put very much traffic on a residential street from a commercial property. So just might check that out. Staff could probably help you with that.
I think
I know you've got the access on barns, but to put all of the access on barns, I don't think is something that traffic typically goes with.
I believe I've spoken to Gabriel down at the city planning department, and he said there were no issues as far as traffic in and out of as far as how it's laid out. So I've checked with him a few times on a couple things just to make sure we were okay if there were any other issues as far as like access. We added that access for the pedestrian off of Barnes. We weren't required to per the city, but we were trying to work alongside Urban Design Committee to get as much of their guidelines as possible. So.
Okay, so you're open to a continuance, correct?
Yeah, we'll do a continuance, and I'll see what we can do, and if we can't do anything, we'll be back in the same spot next.
Okay.
Next month.
Do we have any other comments or questions before I ask for a motion?
I think staff may be a good resource for you
Yeah,
before you finish.
Michael and I have talked a lot, definitely.
And Michael, thank you for agreeing to an extra couple days for this. Do I have a motion?
Move continuance to the next meeting. Do I have to do date certain? It's in the back of the...
And I had one question as well. So when I go to the Board of Adjustment this next week, obviously they're going to...
You will probably ask for a continuance there, too.
Contact
Will I need
staff.
to ask for a continuance for them?
Contact staff right after this and tell them
Okay.
you know you want to continue.
Okay.
Okay, that motion is move continuance to August 24th, 2016.
Second.
Motion by Brunstetter, I missed who seconded. Second by Sellers. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Okay.